We didn't grow up knowing what executive function skills were. Life felt overwhelming. Managing time, staying organized, and feeling stuck made everything difficult. What we didn't realize was that we lacked the skills to plan, prioritize, and break goals into manageable steps. After years of trial and error, we've seen how powerful executive function skills can be. With expert interviews, real stories, and practical strategies, this podcast is the resource we wish we had. Whether you're a student, parent, or professional, we're here to help you unlock your potential. Today, we're joined by Shawna Warner, who is a parenting coach specializing in teenage resilience and family dynamics. Shawna helps parents empower their children to build self-confidence and develop meaningful relationships. Her practical strategies for strong family connections are reminders that we all need. Let's begin. Shawna, thank you so much for joining me. I'm so excited to have you here.
Yeah, so happy to be here.
I've heard just amazing things about the work you do with parents and families and a lot around mindsets. And I want to dig in a little bit about that.
Yeah.
The first thing I wanted to ask is about resilience. It's just a term that keeps coming up over and over, and our kids have been through a lot. So how do you think about resilience?
Yeah, resilience has definitely become a buzzword, but it also is a really important word as our kids are growing up. And when you sent me a question around resilience, I started thinking about my own journey a little bit as I was walking my dog, because I get my best ideas when I'm doing that. And I specifically remembered a time, just like in 7th or 8th grade, there was a purposeful knock at my front door, and I was up in my room, and I remember just like shrinking and being like, oh my gosh, what did I do? And I had a paper route. I had started, I think in like 6th grade anyway, had a neighborhood paper out. And for whatever reason, like that day, I was in a bad mood or something, and I didn't do my paper.
Just completely forgot.
I think it was kind of a conscious forget. You know, I don't know what I thought was going to happen. But yeah, my neighbors decided they wanted their papers, and they started coming and knocking on my door. My mom made me go down and address the neighbors. There was like 2 or 3. Anyway, and then she was like, get on your bike, load up your papers, do your paper out. And we didn't have the languaging then for like being in a shame storm, but pedaling my bike through the neighborhood, I was 100% in a shame storm. You know, I was like, I knew that I had done something not right, and I didn't know how to handle it. I just didn't have the skills. And so thankfully, when I got home, my parents fed me dinner and sat me down, and they were like, this is your responsibility. We can go down one road or we can go down another road. And let's take you down the road of what can we take away from this experience? I never did drop my paper out again. It never happened again. But even if they didn't believe in me and believe in my ability to do it right, I didn't know. If they had a conversation behind closed doors, I didn't know, because I got the sense that, okay, I screwed up, but they believe in me to do the right thing. And so I think believing in your kiddo is so important, even when you're like in it, you know, even when you're in it. And then also putting it kind of in perspective, because when I was in that shame storm, I was really like saying not nice things about myself to myself. And they put it in perspective, like, okay, this was one time. This was one moment in time. And it doesn't mean you're like a bad or horrible person. It just, you made a bad decision.
Yeah, well, and I love how they didn't put on your character. Like you said, like it's not your character. It was just an act. But then the other thing is that they made you go out and face the music.
Yes.
Like you had to still deliver the papers and do what you said you were going to do.
Yeah. So yes, the upside is they believed in me, and the other side is they set boundaries, and they held those boundaries, and they're like, go do it. And so, yeah, I mean, it was like, it didn't feel great, but it also was a very good learning experience of knowing that, okay, yeah, I screwed up, but I can begin again. And that's kind of a concept that actually my mom taught us long ago. And I still kind of live by it, actually. Like, you can always begin again. If you make a mistake, if you fall down, I call it dips. If you have a dip, you can always begin again. And there's always something that you can learn from that experience.
Yeah, first of all, it's great parenting, right? It's super cool to hear that. Where do you think we've gone a little bit awry in resilience? Or have we?
Well, I think sometimes the buzzwords now, like resilience, I don't know, they tend to just sort of get brushed under the rug a little bit. And I've also, in my experience, kids don't really want their parents to be like, this is a resilience building activity. They just
grit, the word grit, for whatever reason.
And they don't like the word grit.
They hate the word grit.
I love the word grit. Yeah. I think gritty is so important. But yeah, so I think sometimes it really gets overlooked. And I think sometimes parents, we got a lot going on, right? We have our own responsibilities and our own grievances and our own things that we are doing. And, we're here to grow alongside our kiddos. But also I think that when we see our kiddos struggling or uncomfortable or make a mistake or screw up or whatever, it's just like, let's just fix it, right? And that's kind of different from beginning again. The whole fix it mentality, it doesn't build their resilience. Had my parents put me in the car and said, come on, let's go do your paper route, I don't think that I would have necessarily absorbed it the same way or learned quite the same way.
Thank you for saying that, because I've noticed in the past few years that parents are quicker to jump in and try to quote unquote fix the issue. Having a daughter, my daughter's younger, but I see her struggling zipping up her coat, and it pains me to watch it, right? Even I want to fix it.
Yeah.
But what I'm hearing you saying, what the research says is we just can't jump in and fix it.
No, it's not helpful. It's really not helpful to our kiddos, because the way that we build resilience is by falling down and getting back up. I mean, if I go back and think about it, maybe your daughter too, like when you put them on a bike for the first time, they're going to fall down. Or if you put them on skis for the first time, they're going to fall down. They got to learn how to roll to the side and get themselves back up. Even though standing there, you really want to lift them up and have them learn how to ski in, 48 hours or whatever.
Without the pain.
Yeah. But it's like they need to see, oh my gosh, I can do it. I can be uncomfortable and I can still move through this. I can still do this.
Yeah. So walk me through a real life example. I get a lot of two types of questions, it seems like, with high school students.
Yeah.
Type 1 is my kid won't do their homework.
Mm-hmm.
And then type 2 is when they start to get a little independence, they're late to class or they ditch a class or something.
Yeah.
Taking either one of those examples, how would you look at this through building resilience type lens?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, I guess I go back and I think about my own learning journey, and ADHD wasn't a term then, though I had a difficult time paying attention in class. My learning style felt very different. I had some teachers who didn't talk very kindly to me. I didn't, I feel like people get stuck in their processes sometimes. And it's like, this is how it's all supposed to work. But it doesn't work for everybody. And it didn't necessarily work for me. And so teaching our kiddos that if it doesn't work for them, we need them to advocate for themselves, right? Like, there's always something underneath the homework. There's always a reason, like, what is the undercurrent? And I like to whip out I don't have it now, but my visual of the iceberg, right? What you see on the surface is the undone homework. But what is going on underneath? There's usually fear, confusion, I don't know, some other big emotions, but that's usually what is driving the reason why they don't do their homework. So it's stopping the whole process of do, and being like, okay, what's actually going on here? What is going on under the surface? What is the undercurrent? And there's always one. So often we just want to hoop and holler about homework or whatever that is. But yeah, thank you for saying that. How do you recommend parents have that conversation? Because I could imagine a lot of teenagers would get defensive towards that. Gosh, how do you have that conversation? I think big picture thinking, you need to, as parents, take kind of that 30,000 foot view of, okay, what's going on? What's going on here? And part of the reason why I structured my coaching program the way I did is because I feel like there are 4 key elements to cultivating a resilient teen. And that is looking at their sense of self, their social scenarios, their educational experience, and their family life. And chances are, if there's an undercurrent or if there's defensiveness, that one of those keys, if you think of it as like the legs of a table, one of those is wobbling and it's affecting the other areas. And so taking that sort of overarching view and thinking, okay, how is my kiddo doing in this area? What's going on in this area? How are they doing socially? It almost always boils down to their sense of self, how they see themselves as a student doing the homework. And so if you come at them with, why aren't you doing your homework? That why question shuts us down every time, right? We know that. But as parents, we get in our processes and we're like, why didn't you do your homework? Why is this test on IC or this assignment missing? Why? And I think we just also really need to take a step back and look at our own mindset, because our mindset it's huge. It matters. And so it's like, where are we coming from? Where are we coming from? And then take inventory. Are we only looking at our kiddos' limitation bucket and all the missing assignments? What about all those micro moments where they actually didn't want to sit through class, but they did, or asked a question, or had to sit next to the person that they've got some beef with and, had to live through all of those side-eye moments or giggles from behind them that they didn't know what it means. So our kiddos are navigating a lot. And I think what we need to do as parents is really look at what is our approach, what is our mindset in how we handle their resistance or their defensiveness. And I like looking at those 4 areas because it breaks it down and it kind of shows us where the wobble is.
I love that explanation. It's a great reminder that we're not necessarily looking at the problem, we're looking at the symptoms, right? And so, that's awesome. Well, going along with that, independence. I swear, nearly every day I get sent an article on why aren't kids adulting? Why are we struggling so much with independence with this generation?
Yeah, it does seem to be an interesting kind of phenomenon that our kids are maybe just not growing up or thriving in the way that we really want them to. As parents, we really do want them to. I talk to my own kids about we're on the same team. We are a team and we all want the same things, and that's for you to be happy. And where does happiness come from? Growth and independence. And so if you kind of take that question and flip it on its head and go, okay, well, what does not having independence look like? It's stuckness, right? Not enoughness. My parents don't think I can do this, or they don't believe in me. They don't have the faith in me that I can actually do this hard thing because they're doing it for me, or they're holding me back and you're not ready yet. Not yet. But the truth is are we ever really ready? And so I really do think that talking to parents about, okay, what is your vision? What does independence really look like for your kiddo? Because, one size doesn't fit all. And one size did not fit my kids either. They're also different. And so we had to take slightly different approaches with their independence. But again, if you look at what does not having independence look like, it's stagnation. And we're here to grow. That's what we need as humans, right? We need to grow.
Yeah. And I want to echo 2 things you said because I think they're so important. One is, what is the big picture view? Because often we get stuck in you have 3 missing assignments in math. Well, that's not the big picture view. The big picture is to have a happy and healthy young adult, right?
Yes.
And then the second one you said is when we do it for them, we rob them of the ability to do it themselves. Or we're basically telling them that we don't think you can do this. I think that's such an important point.
Yeah. So going back to the iceberg, right? What's on the surface is our kiddos not having their assignment done. There's always a reason why it's not getting done. And so really pausing and trying to look at what's the root cause here. And if we end up talking to their teacher and saying, he's got so much going on or she's too overwhelmed to do this, we're handling it for them. And really and truly what my clients share with me and what my kids probably they did echo back to me is, you don't trust me. You don't trust that I have the ability to do this. And that is the opposite of resilience, and the opposite of confidence. And so we got to let them kind of learn how to be uncomfortable and learn how to manage and navigate and advocate for themselves. Because is an assignment going to not get done every now and then? Yes. Sometimes they get sick and it gets backed up. Yes. But we want them to be able to see that they can handle it. Doesn't have to be perfect. It can be kind of messy, but that they can do it and they can see it and that they're okay.
Yeah. I like that you mentioned the messy piece because
it's messy.
It's messy. You and I work with a lot of families. If it feels messy at home, it's messy for all of us.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good thing to remember.
Yeah.
So here's the hard question, right? Is how do we strike this balance between giving them scaffolding and independence. Because if we give too much independence without the right scaffolding, things fall apart. So how do you think about this balance?
Yeah. When like, I don't know if like parenting and balance are synonymous.
I don't think they are, but
like we want to feel a sense of balance because we all like certainty, right? And the mind thrives on certainty. But I think that we have to recognize that sometimes things are going to be out of balance, but always checking in with our kiddos, like going back to that framework of your sense of self. Like, how are you talking to and about yourself? How's that? Is that wobbling or is that pretty sturdy? What's going on with your friends? I have my clients tell me in sort of an unofficial poll that I often take. And it's like, I ask them how much of the social stuff that's going on around you impacts or influences your ability to focus. It's always 80+%.
I was just saying, it's everything to them at this stage in life.
Everything to them. And so what's going on with the social stuff? And being able to check in with your kid and them saying like, so-and-so ignored me today. So-and-so didn't talk to me. I mean, I have hundreds of examples of things that rattle them that will then come home and rattle them and cause them to not get this homework assignment done because they're texting and trying to figure out the misunderstanding or whatnot. And so I think for parents, again, like checking on those 4 areas: school, friends, self, family. How are things going? And looking at maybe where the wobble is and where they can support that kiddo. And I feel like that is where we can go about trying to seek balance, where balance isn't always available,
Yeah. Well, it's a great way to put it. And what I love that you do too is you validate their feelings. Because as adults, when we hear like, someone's mad at me, so I can't do my homework, like it sounds ridiculous. But to them, and just the number of experience that they have in life, it's a big deal, even if it doesn't sound like a big deal to us.
Yeah. They are experiencing so many things in a day. I liken it to the beginning of the Star Wars movie where like the zillions of stars are coming at you. I mean, that is a typical day for a teen. They have a lot coming at them. And so they are building circuitry to cope with that stuff all the time. But some days, like the day I didn't feel like doing my paper out, they just don't feel like they have it. But it does affect everything. It bleeds into everything and it can influence everything. And so if you're trying to check in with your kiddo and they're like, I don't know, I tell parents that's a legitimate answer. They don't know. So let's break it down. Let's look at where they are in those 4 areas. Love scaling, 1 to 10. How are you feeling about school right now? 10 is our high number. They give you their number. How are you feeling about yourself right now? 1 to 10. They can give you numbers sometimes when they can't give you explanations or words.
That's a great insight. Well, the other thing I know I make the mistake of all the time as well is I'll say things like, how was your day?
Yeah.
And what a loaded question. I don't even know why. I know better than to say it, but I still say it. Yeah. It's such a hard thing to answer because like you said, there's so much coming at them.
Yeah. So much coming at them. And sometimes it's hard to break it down and actually have the words for it. So good scaling questions can help you sometimes pinpoint where things are out of balance.
And then do you use those, let's say they say a 2 out of 10 on friends and everything else is a 6 or a 7. Do you use that as your jump in point to be like, well, what's going on with friends? Or how does that look for you?
Yeah, well, that's exactly what I asked them. What does a 2 look like for you? What does a 2 mean? Can you give me some context around what a 2 is? And they're all a little bit different, obviously, but a 2 usually means that they are in shutdown mode. We all know fight, flight, freeze, fawn. There's a lot of talk about fawning now, which is really just the people-pleasing part of it. Apologizing when they don't really feel like they did anything wrong, but they're just doing it. It's kind of a social survival skill. But usually a 2 or a 3 usually means that they are in shutdown mode and they're just trying to protect themselves. My mentor coach calls it living in the protective personality rather than living like from your true soulful self. Because if you're your true soulful self, you're probably a 7, 8, 9, because no matter what kind of comes your way, whether it's the side eye or the snarky comment or the person, looking at your Snapchat, the little peek, but not answering, you can check in with your sense of self and go, okay, whatever is going on for them, they're not answering me. Or whatever is going on for them, they're kind of projecting it on me. So really getting in tune with, okay, if I'm really shut down, what is my protective personality doing for me right now? And it's almost always trying to keep me safe. And if they're in that shutdown, keep me safe mode, doing homework, it's almost impossible.
Yeah. The brain can't learn. We always say that,
Right.
when you're stuck in fight or flight, you can study all day, every day, but you're just not learning. And same thing with what you're talking about. So, well, closing it up, what is your core piece of advice you give for parents of teenagers with executive function challenges?
So because of executive function challenges, there's often a lot of fear and anxiety, right? And so I like to break it down. And I think about fear and anxiety can get the better of us if we let it feel bigger than us. So becoming familiar with the unfamiliar, getting to know your fear, getting to know your anxiety, what is the role it's playing so that you feel like you can collaborate with it versus fear it, so to speak. We don't want it to be bigger than us. So become familiar with all that unfamiliarity. There's always a lesson in it. As far as the, diverse, neurodiverse community, I feel like every day there are new resources. And so for parents tuning in and finding resources that you feel like can support you, because it's important to feel like you have support. You don't know it all, and that's okay. We just don't. We're not supposed to know it all. So coming to Untapped Learning, right? Or looking at, I love the Child Mind Institute online. They have a ton of resources. And then I always love a good framework to help parents and clients, and for me, a little acronym to help remember these frameworks. So when I think about, okay, how do I talk to my clients and the families that I work with? And I like easy acronyms. So I came up with LALA.
It's a very easy
You
acronym.
remember LALA, right? And the first L is learn your learning style. That is your golden ticket. Learn your learning style. It's so important. I wish I would have learned that when I was young. The A in LALA, the first A in LALA is acknowledge. That is your internal operating system. That's you. And you're meant to be that way. Like, it's you. It's your unique internal operating system. The second L is to lean in, or if you can, love into the fact that this is you and there are no bad parts to you. There are no bad parts. This is you for a reason. And maybe you don't see it now, but you'll see it later in life. And then the last A is to advocate, 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 advocate. If you've got a test, a makeup test, advocate with your teacher about what environment will help you be successful. If you need to write a paper and you're not sure, advocate. Find the resources, find the help that you need so you can get it done and see yourself getting it done. I like to ask my clients to entertain the idea of everything that is happening to you is happening to help you grow. It's for your growth. Well, it may feel like a huge challenge or a huge hurdle in front of you. It's helping you grow and getting you ready for the next version of you, the next step.
Yeah. First of all, great acronym. LALA is very easy to
So
remember.
LALA. You can remember LALA.
Yeah. And then I also love the lean in piece. I think the amount of challenges we see where people are just trying to fight their learning style or fight that their kid thinks differently, just leaning into it is just such a great piece of advice. So,
Or comparing yourself to someone else.
Correct.
It doesn't work. Or hopping on somebody else's journey.
Yeah.
It doesn't work.
doesn't work. So this has been so helpful for me. Where can people find you?
At cultivatingresilientteens.com. You could probably also just Google Shawna Warner, because cultivatingresilientteens.com is kind of long. But I have an office in Central Boulder. That's where I see my clients. But I think my website is probably the best place to begin.
Awesome. Shawna, thank you so much for taking the time, and thanks for sharing.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on the Executive Function for All podcast. If today's episode brought you any value, please rate us 5 stars and share it with someone who may benefit. And remember, every small step you take builds towards your success. For resources and guidance, visit untappedlearning.com. Keep growing, keep learning, and we'll see you next time.